Dumelang, Sanbonani, good day. 30 years ago, before democracy, South Africa was divided according to race and tribes. We had the land of the Botswana, the Zulu, the Xhosas, and out of these lands, we had leaders like your Khosi Mangophe. You had also from the Zulu nation, Prince Mangusuthu Buthelezi, who was leading the IFP. And you also had Bantu Holomisa in the Eastern Cape. These political parties were built around tribe and around the areas in which they were born and came from. As we united after democracy, South Africa became non-racial, we became united, and yesterday, IFP is still in parliament 30 years later. It was formed, and now is led by Ntate Hlabisa. In studio, I'm joined by their youth representative. He is Phakamani Mpanza. He was born and raised in Mpangeni in KwaZulu-Natal. He has a diploma in legal assistance, advanced diploma in business administration, advanced diploma in technical and vocational teaching. He's a former secretary of the South African Democratic Student Movement, Shoshanguve IFP Student Wing. My brother, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yes, I'm very much welcome, Bafana. Thanks to your welcoming stuff, and yes, I'm fine. Firstly, before we could go any further, I would just like to send a salutation of gratitude to the individuals responsible for me being here, representing the organization, specifically my youth leader in Gauteng, Utalsi Manganyi. I'm very much grateful, and for everyone who's been involved in my political upbringing, I'm very much grateful. Thank you.
My brother, actually, I'm going to start there, right? You grew up in Natal, Mpangeni, and there were so many political parties that you could have chosen. But then the question is, was politics always your area of interest, or did you just start as you grew up?
No, Bafana, that's a very interesting question, and I would like to tackle it as personally as possible as it is.
Go for it.
It does sound a bit personal. So yes, I born and raised in Mpangeni, Sagamtetwa, Mbabe Reserve, Ward 8, under the leadership of the now Deputy Minister of Umfolozi Municipality, Ubabu Menziwa Ubiela, who's my ward councillor, who's also responsible for my political growth. Growing up, for me, to be honest with you, I did not see myself within the political fraternity, but it's something that I would, in lack of better terms, refer to as a calling, because my first encounter to politics was actually through student politics. I came here to TUT, Tshwane University of Technology. It was the year 2017 when I was introduced to the South African Democratic Student Movement, which is a brainchild of the current leader, Ubaba Ungoja, VF Hlabisa. You know. So growing up, basically what led me to be this young student activist, or rather politician, is when I grew up, you know, one of the most shameful things ever, 2017, when I came to TUT, it was difficult for me to even switch on a computer, you know. Why was that? Because the education back in the academic segregation is very effective to us people who are from the villages. But then coming this side, I kind of understood the differences we had in the rural areas as compared to the urban areas. So throughout my political journey, that is one thing that's close to me that I wish to rectify. You know, as I said earlier, that one of the issues that we have, or the problem that we have with our politicians, that we tend to put people in power who has never themselves kind of faced our problems. So as a result, they find it difficult to resolve them. So I think my political hunger came through the experiences that I had growing up in the village of Kwesagamtetwa, until this day, obviously.
I think most people would say to you, we know, maybe they would expect it because you're from KwaZulu-Natal, you are IFP, right? Some would say, but why not ANC?
Well, why not ANC? one of the most controversial things ever. I kind of came up in an ANC setup, back home. As I said, I was not politically inclined to politics, but then I don't want to mention names because there are people close to me who until this day are somewhat ANC members. But then I'm a human being who prides himself of having a very fertile mindset. I have the ability, because I think the modern day intellectuals are not the people who have the capacity to actually grasp knowledge, but then the people who has the capacity to learn and unlearn things. So I think that notion of the ANC is something that I had to learn to unlearn, or rather put away with, and then focus with what I actually thought was right for me and my people.
So here's the question. It will come to a point when they say, okay, because I'm Tswana, I would support the UCDP back then of Mangope. Is it because maybe you felt more connected to the IFP as a Zulu person, as it represents the monarchy and the Zulu people?
Well, I think that would be a question of association and affiliation. But then obviously the Zulu nation has its a large affiliation to the IFP. We cannot shy away from that.
Yes.
Because of Mangusuthu Buthelezi being the prime minister of the Zulu nation. And in the IFP in its entire form, I wouldn't think that it is described through that. We can look at the IFP's leadership from the provincial until up to the national level. I mentioned Comrade Utalsi Mangani. Comrade Utalsi Mangani is actually Venda by birth. He's from Limpopo. She's from Limpopo. She's the leader of the province, the youth brigade, doing quite well. If things go as planned, he will be representing the organization in Cape Town National Parliament. So we have that belief. So I think the notion of tribalism, the notion of sexism, the notion of the IFP being ageist is some sort of propaganda against the growth of the organization. I can count to you the city of Tswana. We have a very young MMC by the name of Comrade Zianda Zwane. At the age of 27, he's an MMC of the Environment and Agriculture Department. We can go as far as possible in terms of counting names to just defeat the notion, but I think the IFP has its duty on the people to actually show them that all the notions that are posed on them are actually not true.
So in essence, you have managed to grow beyond the Zululand border, and you have managed to go into different cultures, as you said, that now you have the Venda woman, Delcy Mangai, who's the provincial leader. So you're no longer just a party focusing on the Zulu kingdom. You've expanded beyond that. I'm gonna go to this question. As you spoke about education earlier, on how you arrived here, you couldn't even use a computer, but you had metric. What do you find to be alarming with our education system, and what can the country expect from the IFP government in resolving what we have as crisis in our education sector?
I mean, Bafana, let's look at this. Pass rate, 30%.
Nation fit.
It's very humiliating to actually know that's how we that's how low we think of our capacity as a nation. As I always say, that the IFP always, whenever they put something forward, it's either they have studied it correctly, or they have something to reference. Look at the 10 years that we were in charge of KZN, the pass rate then. What was the pass rate? And then you look at how were people actually passing. You cannot expect an economy to function properly with or to be fed proper individuals with proper skills with the pass rate of 50, with the pass rate of 30. It's ridiculous to say, you look at when we were in charge of KZN, we had our colleges that actually focused on teaching, like teaching colleges, which now remain unoccupied buildings, and the moment some of them are actually used for criminal activities. So it's that's what the IFP comes with, the better infrastructures for our education facilities. As I said, the the computer labs in our schools back in the villages. They need to be there. Our economy is shifting. Or rather, our lives are shifting to a digital space, and our people back home are still struggling for a mere thing, Wi-Fi connection.
Eish.
You know, if you would go, as I said, I'm from Kwesakamtetwa, like you can walk miles on end without a Wi-Fi connection. You know, it's only recent that the IFP has taken charge of most of the municipalities through some of them through by-elections, that we can actually say that we have Wi-Fi's emakaya. You know, it's a milestone. From the 30 years of freedom that we have, we still have such issues. It's ridiculous.
So I'm going to come to this, and I know that Mangusuthu Buthelezi, the prince, also built the university. There was a lot of development during his tenure as the prime minister of the Zulu nation. Do you find that maybe ever since the new current government, there's been a decline in developing and empowering the Zulu nation or KwaZulu-Natal in general?
Well, that could be a visible explanation. You look at the current state of KZN right now, as we speak, the current state as we speak. You would tell me, is that the KZN that was then when the IFP was in charge? You would look at the industries that Mangusuthu Buthelezi was responsible for, that are now just factories that were back then operational. You would look at the locations like Umlazi or Ugwamash or Skawini. Those are locations that were actually built by, not necessarily built, but then Mangusuthu Buthelezi had a hand in having such locations. Why? So that it could be easier for people from disadvantaged backgrounds, the villages, to actually come closer to the central point of business in KZN. You know, so look at those cities now. They are undermanaged. They are not properly facilitated. It becomes an issue because these are the places that were brought to existence or to life rather by the President Emeritus Mangusuthu Buthelezi. And
you look at as well the free education that people have been speaking about from 2014. That today, last week we heard that NSFAS is dissolved. The board has been dissolved, and the question is, should we rather come up with a new scheme or should we rather just make education free and somehow find a way to finance it?
Not necessarily a free scheme, Bafana. Basically, what is failing in the current scheme that we have, you know, maybe you would see that the DA has recently just won the case that the ANC should put forward their cadre deployment minutes. Why is that? Because we have there individuals that are not fully capacitated to actually handle the issues of the disbursement of funds. Because people are put there for the mere fact that they are ANC, not that they are capacitated enough to fill those positions. You know, I also think, or the IFP also believe, that a decentralized system for NSFAS would work much more better and efficiently for our students. Right now, the central office of NSFAS is in Cape Town. I'm at Gwanongoma in Tashana College. You know, I want to resolve an NSFAS issue. I have to lodge a call to Cape Town. Sometimes it gets there, sometimes it doesn't get there. Do I have the resources to do that? No, I don't. You know, so the NSFAS offices should be brought back to the universities where they can be dealt with with efficiency and correctly.
Because I look at that part of education, and that's where most young people, you also have the sector called the TVET sector.
Yes.
That was mandated to actually make those young people who might not necessarily have access to universities to be employable, to be skilled. But even there, NSFAS has failed. They get their monies at the end of the year, and you're like, but what was the purpose of the money if it only comes at the end of the term? When you look at this issue of healthcare, because I love the way you speak about your manifesto, how you want to revolutionize healthcare. Are you trying to bring in are you trying to twin the two, the private sector and the public sector into two? What is the plan around healthcare?
Basically, as I said, or rather as you would know, the IFP prides itself of not being a political party of isms. We are all about what works for the people. What is practical for the people. Of course, the healthcare should be mandatorily free for all the people of South Africa. And in one of the most detrimental effects to the healthcare is obviously mismanagement and the lack of efficient resources to serve our people. And that is a result of a domino effect, if you look at it, dating back to who's responsible for supplying all these things, who's responsible for administering all these things. It's a domino effect. The people who are responsible for all of these things are unqualified. They are corrupt individuals who only look forward to fill their comrades and their stomachs. So it's going to be a situation whereby if each and every issue is to be resolved, we look at how it affects the other, and then that way we can work towards a common goal as a nation.
I'm gonna go into load shedding. Today we are enjoying. There's no load shedding anymore. For the past couple of days, it's been nice. Somebody said you have uncapped electricity. But then the question is, how do we put it permanently to stop? What is your plan? In your manifesto, you speak of other energy sources. Are you also supporting the PPE, IPPs, to go get into the space of electricity? Maybe that can, with competition, we might see more electricity in the country. Is that what you guys are proposing?
Well, firstly, the organization believes that like a resuscitation of the coal industry, we should not completely forsake it. It could still be effective for our people if it's properly managed. There are other means of producing electricity. There are huge companies, international companies, some of them who have actually landed in Africa and South Africa. I can count for you Sino Hydro, Power China. These are companies that actually are responsible for hydropower electricity produced through the flow of water, which is water being a national resource, which we can also use. So I would say that not completely forsake the use of coal, just manage it properly and in a way that it will serve the community and the people correctly, and also involve other ways in which we can produce electricity to serve the nation.
You mentioned that you want to subsidize the poor. So you say that you also intend to subsidize the price of electricity for the poor and disadvantaged communities. What do you mean by say you subsidize? Are you going to buy electricity at the cheaper rate because you are poor, and if you are rich, it goes higher? How do you subsidize that?
Well, that is a very practical question for a comrade like me. But I'll try by all means to answer it correctly. I just hope that it will satisfy you.
Yes.
Well, obviously, the poor, there's this way whereby if you are used to prepaid electricity, there's a different a person who's buying prepaid electricity at a location won't be paying the same price as a person who's buying prepaid electricity in the rural areas. We are just saying that yes, the subsidies that are currently being implied, they are still not adequate for the economic position of our people. So we are opting for a further subsidy of the electricity to actually match the economic position of our people.
Because there is something called, in municipalities, they're called indigents, where you go and apply, and I think they subsidize your water bill and they run. So maybe I think is that the approach you want to take as well?
Exactly. if an individual Bafana is a recipient of ilokuzana grant by the state, is a person who is a recipient of ilokuzana grant of being ukuthi usekhulile, do we still need that person to go and fall lines and apply for such programs? It's evident enough that he needs this subsidy, so subsidize the people, let them be in a position whereby they do not have to worry about the
basic needs.
The basic needs, So it's very important for us to provide that to our people.
The question that I'm going into is the one that when it started back in the day, there was something called xenophobia, and it was very strong in KwaZulu-Natal. What is the IFP position on illegal immigration?
The IFP's provision in, if you would date back, Bafana, you would know that Mangusuthu Buthelezi was once the Prime Minister of Home Affairs in KZN, and he did state to the then government that the security in borders is not up to date, which is something they ignored. Of course, the IFP believes in a stricter border security. The IFP in its establishment, or rather legal instruments, it states that it advocates for African humanism. For an organization that would advocate for African humanism, it would be contradictory for them to be against our foreign brothers coming to the country. Now let's look at it like this. A definition of an immigrant. A definition of an immigrant is not just only. It's the definition of an immigrant would not only be
illegal,
limited to how the state defines an immigrant. We can go as far as looking at other international definitions, like the African Charter for People and Human Rights, that describes an immigrant as someone who has profound fear in his country of birth that allows him
asylum seekers,
yes,
and all of that. Yes,
and in the notion of asylum seekers, in if you would read through our manifesto, we are not saying that we should completely do away with asylum seekers. We are saying that if proper housing could be provided for them within the vicinity of the borders, for them to be kept there until their decision is made in terms of asylum, and then if yes granted, then they should be brought back. We know mass deportation has been classified as a crime against humanity by the United Nations. We are not opting for mass deportation, but repatriation is offered as a remedy for a high number of foreign nationals within the country. So such methods should be also looked at, that people are repatriated back to their countries, and we can move on as a nation without having any fights.
There is an issue also that comes with illegal immigration, of security, of increased crime, and some go as far as the drug circulation in the country. Right? Would not be a good idea to deport those who are here illegally? But I think maybe that might be mass deportation. There's a lot of them, so that might be described as mass deportation. Should you rather intensify our security or our immigration police? What would be the best solution to deal with it quickly?
Well, it's very true. It's very true, Bafana. You look at River Park, Alexandra. Look at the number of people who illegal immigrants there, and look at the crime rate there. You look at Sunnyside and Pretoria. Look at the number of illegal immigrants there. Look at the crime rates there. Look at Hillbrow in Johannesburg. Look at the number of foreign nationals there. Look at the crime rate there. The stats are there. They are giving us what is actually happening. As you said, mass deportation at this point cannot be a solution, but repatriation is. Those who are illegally here should be repatriated back to their state, to their motherland, and then those that have the borders, the IFP is opting for stricter border security, and also whilst we are sending people to guard our borders, and also the construction of border walls, because I think it can be of maximum security.
So it's not like Trump now. Are you saying you must build a wall? Is that what you say? Build a wall.
Just build the wall, No, but then in a sense, I think it can be a way to intensify security and also invest in other technological resources that could easily maintain, like your drones and so forth, like can take full coverage of actually the walls and be completely monitored by individuals who are trained to do so. So we should look on such things, Bafana.
Mganam, I think that's the idea of building a wall. It's going to be controversial, but moving along.
Okay.
Crime and security. We have now Mapanyaza. A while ago, we had all of these interventions of increasing police, of increasing soldiers, but we don't see the effectiveness of them. We have so many security companies in South Africa. Every now and then, if there's a new security company in communities saying we can protect you, but yet we have policing in this country. According to the IFP, where is the problem and how do we solve it?
Well, Bafana, let's look at it like this. We, in total in South Africa, if my stats serve me correctly, it's 117,950 police officers. And in KZN alone, the popularity in KZN alone is somewhere around 11 million and so forth, So you look at this, these numbers, you compare them to each other. Are they actually adequate enough? No. What is the IFP saying? The IFP is saying that we should also look into community forums in terms of policing or rather for security for our people, capacitate them with the relevant skills and knowledge on how to actually police crimes in our communities, intensify the sentencing of those who do wrong, we of course there's a controversial element of section 36, the death sentence. We are not saying that
death penalty.
The death penalty.
Death penalty.
No. Hey. we are not saying that. We don't want to take two steps forward and then fall back. As a nation, we come far, and our right to life is one of the most essential rights in the country. But then when there comes a time whereby you kind of jeopardize someone's life, you are kind of setting up a waiver for your own right, So we stand for that as a nation. Let us look for other measures to actually bring about safety within our communities. I think our policing systems needs assistance from our communities in order to get a full scale of what's happening.
Because I remember there was a time where there was a team that was called Amaberete. When they were so feared, when they arrived in townships, people would run around, right? And I think that at that time, that's when the government was trying to be more harsher. When we had the Minister of Police back then, let's say, shoot to kill. I think those were the extreme ways of trying to deter criminals. But then the death penalty, do you think it might work to deter criminal activity in this country?
Well, what have we got to reference in terms of it being effective or non-effective? We look at that also. Personally, so I wouldn't necessarily say that as a person who's a semi-legal scholar, I wouldn't necessarily say that the death penalty is the ultimate solution, But I would go as far as saying that debates and conversations on the topic should be encouraged, See how far we can go in terms of it being a reality, because we cannot completely say that it won't be of any help or rather assistance to our people.
No, definitely. There's been nations across the world that have imposed that, and because of that penalty, it deters people from stealing, right? It deters people from actually going into crime, because they believe if I get caught here, I'm done. It's finished, right? I'm gonna go into this one here, and because Natal has been dealing with a lot of floods as of recent. And there's been issues as well of service delivery. And most people always reference to the time of Prince Mangusuthu Buthelezi, how everything was efficient, how everything was working. Where do you think this government got wrong, and how do we fix the service delivery issues that we see? People are still not yet rehabilitated or helped after the last floods. There is still the communities where, as you said, there's no Wi-Fi, there is no access to basic needs.
Well, Bafana, domino effect. It's a situation of a domino effect, as I said, where one's actions, or rather doings, affect the line going down. It's not that the funds are there. We will find in situations where we do have the funds, like the funds that we I think it amounted to 30 million rands, whereby it had to be taken back to the government, because it was not used. Why was it not used? Because they were actually looking for ways in which they can give, or rather give those tender opportunities to their comrades in the notion of cadre deployment. So it's an issue that we as a country we need to resolve, Bafana, because if those people are still in power, the same issues that we have now will be the same issue that we'll have tomorrow, because their main objective is very clear, feed their own stomachs, and then to hell with what happens to our people, Emakai,
Tell me something. Do you still see the role of traditional leaders or customary law in any way, or maybe in their ruling communities? Do you still see them as strategic? Do you still think they still have a role to play? And there's Amabuto, there is all of these community structures that are there, they've always been there historically. Do you think in any way traditional or customary law still has a role to play to deter corruption, but also again to ensure that services are delivered?
Yes, Abafan. You look at the South African hierarchy, in terms of courts, the traditional courts are actually there. It's they are constitutionalized. It's not like it's something new. They are there. It just needs us to actually make them effective. I think they would play a very instrumental role in resolving some of the crimes that we have, your gender-based violence crimes and so forth. And I think they would, if they were used correctly and if they were implemented, because at where we stand right now, they are of no effect. So I because as it is provided by the relevant documentation, that it is not only per the eye of the religious leaders that they are actually, the laws are actually passed on in those courts. The government is actually rather instructed that they would provide scholars who will be assisting with the handing out of those sentences that will be handed out in those courts.
The most controversial issue, Phakamani, is this thing of saying land must go back to the kings. Some are saying, no, land must go to government. Some are saying, no, let's share the land with our white counterparts. Let's say you take back the land from them and the government takes 30%, or the community takes 30%. And there is so many theories around land. What is the IFP position on land expropriation? Because I know Ngonyama Trust as well was found in a mix of this land debate.
No. Let's look at the incident that happened, I think somewhere last year. The Minister of Economic Development, Umama Umnis, like the entity, the government entity that he ran, Joburg Property Company, responsible for properties that could amount to 8 billion. He's giving such a portfolio to head. What does he do in that portfolio? People that he put on the board, the board members, the highest qualification that individual had was a matric certificate,
Right.
and you expect that person to have the capacity enough that can be effective in terms of handling all those properties. What are those properties for today? Those properties are harboring criminals in Joburg. It's a state we find ourselves in. As I'll go back to the issue of Ilokuza and a domino effect. So I feel as if like we will be going back and forward if actually these people we give them we continue giving them the power. We will continue suffering from the same issues. I also feel as if I cheated you on your question. Can you just
No, your issue on land. Who must get the land? Is the kings? Is the state? Or let's leave it until later?
No, the IFP believes in the IFP believes in a full scale of land audit. Full scale of land audit. After the full scale of land audit, then we determine what belongs to who. What belongs to who? The land that belongs to the state, that land should be taken, and be used in a way that could benefit the societies, emakaya, for your small, rather for your small, either for your small scales farming or for your SMEs and so forth. Because we find ourselves in a situation whereby we have land, but we don't even know who owns the land or who's responsible for the land.
Yes.
So it's a difficult situation altogether. We are not saying that because there is this notion that is the Ingonyama Trust is land that belongs to the king. The king is the custodian of the land. The land belongs to the people. The land serves the people, one way or another. So we are not saying that the entire country should give the land to our king or to their kings respectively. We are just saying that proper management of land should be given to the state, and the state should be in a position whereby it has a full audit of the land. Who does it belong to? The land that belongs to the state should be properly managed. And we are, for one, an organization that does not believe in the expropriation of land without compensation as it's provided in Section 25 of the Constitution. We believe that proper adequate compensation of land should be offered to the people in which the land would be expropriated from.
But then, Phakamani, somebody will say to you, but that land that they're sitting on, they did not buy it. There was no compensation. They took it with a barrel of a gun and they repossessed the kings and chiefs in villages and they took over the land. Why should I pay it now when I want it back?
Well, that could be a question, that would lead us back to history for as far as 1910, whereby before the
democracy.
Before even democracy, 1910, before the where we had different states as South Africa, the Transvaal and
the Union, yes,
and so forth. It would date us back to that in terms of the actual ownership of the land. So that is not a debate that we would actually. It would be actually a way whereby we waste too much time on debating rather than actually implementing. So they own the land, that those that own the land currently, we are not saying that they should just be the land should just be taken away from them without any compensation. That's not what the IFP believes in. But we are saying that what is duly to them should be compensated, because the land that they took is not the land that they'll be giving away now. The
times have changed.
Yes, the times have changed. There's been investment in that land. There's been infrastructure in that land. You won't be leaving your land with all your 100 tractors. You bought those tractors. Through the money you got through the land, obviously. But a certain degree of understanding should be there. That a certain degree of compensation should be provided to our people.
No, definitely. I think I had to ask you that question because, especially speaking as IFP, as the party that was initially formed as the party for the Zulu nation, and also having the custodianship of the Ngonyama Trust. And somebody also said that maybe it would be a good idea to give the kings the custodianship of these lands, and then from there, the kings work with whoever might be a private owners of these lands within the community to build back and give back to the community. There's something called CSI, right, which we have not really seen. Yes, it's good on paper, but we have not seen it effective. You look at the Northwest today, where there is gold, where there is platinum and diamonds, but the communities that are still very much poor. So you ask yourself, how does this CSI thing contribute? So maybe if the kings had the power, then the kings could be the mouthpiece between the people, because they don't own the land. They are the custodians of this particular land. But I'm going to move into this issue of, because most people will always tell you, corruption. How do we deal with it? How do we ensure that whatever money has been given to a particular department will do its work under your government, that there won't be people being opportunistic on a 1 billion infrastructure budget and say, no, I'm going to chow. How do we deal with corruption decisively?
Well, before I jump to that question of yours, I saw you there, you were kind of putting me on the spot, exposing to how little homework I did on my on my manifesto.
It's a conversation.
You did put it in a way that it's actually it actually is in the manifesto. It might have slipped me here and there.
No worries.
Yeah. So, what was your question again? The last one?
No. How do we deal with corruption decisively in government?
Yeah, corruption decisively. Obviously, to reprimand a child from bad behavior is to have strict consequences on that very same behavior. I think corruption should be moved forward in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act as to the highest schedule in terms of penalty when it comes to such activities. I think it's corruption is a crime against humanity. Corruption is the highest form of crime in the land. Corruption goes back to almost every problem that we have in the land. And I think to police charge, of course, strict measures have to be there, and strict policing measures have to be there also, and also consistent auditing of all state transactions should be there in order to pick up. It doesn't assist us whereby we find out that comrade so and so embezzled close to 10 million rands 5 years or 10 years back. Where were you when that embezzlement was happening? It's so far now we are prosecuting someone for something that he did 10 years. We have multiple what you call these cases, Zondo, those
Zondo commissions.
Those commissions that would just waste more state resources. So it would be effective if corruption is dealt with immediately and it's dealt with effectively.
I think I love the idea that we don't just grandstand looking like you are busy with something. There was something when I was young. There was something called the Arms Deal Commission. I don't know what was the resolution of it. And to this day, there is a Zondo Commission. And you still have people who were implicated there, being ministers in governance. I'm going to wrap up because I'm looking at time. My brother, you now have the MK party. It's in KwaZulu-Natal. Umsholozi, my daughter. Is the IFP worried?
Well, in terms of proportionality, of course, of course, it's a worrisome issue. But we go to the people. We tell them that Comrade Jacob Zuma was offered an opportunity. Not only in KZN, because I know he served as a prime minister sometime, as a minister, and sometime in KZN. He also served as a president in the country. How much time do we have to give this individual? Look at the formation of the organization, it would surprise you that these people are just been formulated, but look at the number of people they are kind of attracting, but then look at the people they are attracting. I think the people who are members of the MK, or rather claim to be leaders of the MK, are people who have been politically deprived of attention, who are craving attention. Inclusion is a drug, one of America's rappers, Kanye West, said that inclusion is a drug. There are people who always want to be included, in things. Look at the ANC. The ANC, obviously, it had camps. The ANC had camps. I would not necessarily point out the camps, but then you look at the Ramaphosa camp and the Jacob Zuma camp. You look at the MK. What is the MK actually formed of? The Jacob Zuma camp. Why did the Jacob Zuma camp choose to go this side of the MK? It's because the Ramaphosa camp was not allowing them to eat, So now comrades want to eat. So what's their way of eating? Corruption. So it's our duty. It's our duty to go to the people and tell them, no, comrades, this is what's happening.
Because you're right to say, to some extent, you wonder, but why is this party, what was it formed for? But also, don't you see an opportunity that between MK and yourself, there's also the opportunity part where now the ANC is weak, you stand out to win, and they stand to win. Don't you see that also as an advantage for the IFP to come out strong? Because I think now the ANC is not doing well in KZN.
Well, the ANC cannot entirely be weak when the MK is in existence. We know the story. We don't need to go back and forth on that.
Yes.
They won't second guess it. Comrades are willing to collide if they have to, just to destabilize what the IFP is willing to do for the people. So it's a situation like that, Bafana. We cannot rule out ukuhlangana kwabo. It's almost inevitable that they will. So we cannot say the MK would be any good to the people, because it will be just a smaller reincarnation of the ANC.
Yeah, more of the ANC 2.0, if you wanted to call it that way. My brother, in closing, quickly, why, as a young person in South Africa, and I'm not a Zulu, I just want a party to vote for. Why should I vote for the IFP?
Well, that's a very strategic question, Bafana. Why vote for the IFP? One of the reasons why people should vote for the IFP is there are 13 reasons actually enshrined in the manifesto that they can find in the IFP website, for better insight. But for a transformed government, for a corrupt-free government, for a government that is for the people and by the people, I think the IFP is the organization to be put in power to take South Africa forward.
So that is Phakamani from IFP. Did he win your vote? Will you be voting for the IFP on the 29th of May? You decide. Share your comments on the comment section, and remember to subscribe, like, and share the content. This was Manifesto Unpacked. I am Bafana Modise, proudly brought to you by Podcast Party. Tune in, turn up, take action. See you next time. Ciao, ciao.